up, guys? Today we're back in Alex's video at my house. Look at Mati. He wants to hide because he's not that cool. But yeah, this is our intro. Let's get right into it. What's the Parashat?
Vayikra.
Let's get right into Parashat Vayikra.
Shalom, guys. Welcome back to another episode here at Jashavu Ministry with Casa de Israel Yarah. We're back at it again with a new book, a new Torah portion. We're going to enter the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, as is well known. And so we ended up last week, the book of Exodus, and the glory of Adonai filled the tabernacle, right? And now that the tabernacle at the end of Exodus is completed, erected, and the presence of Adonai is in the midst of the camp and in the tabernacle. Adonai calls Moses from the tent of meeting, and he lets him know that he cannot come in. And now it transitions and it pauses to give us the instructions of, we have seen what it took to build the tabernacle. We have seen the efforts, and we have seen different things that have happened that have led us to the tabernacle being erected. The offerings, the terumah, the ransom. We saw all these things, the repetition of it. And now, Adonai is going to tell us how, with this tabernacle that is erected, how do we draw near him? And it's very interesting because Leviticus opens up with sacrifices. And so we'll get into it a little bit, and then I'll let you be free. So, let's get started. Baruch Adonai ha'orah, Baruch Adonai ha'orah le'olam ba'eh, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Adonai noten ha'torah. Bless Adonai who is blessed, bless Adonai who is blessed now and forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the peoples, has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. Amen. Also, share the content that we have on our channel. Boom, 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 bow. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the comment section down below. Also, download the CIY app. I will be putting up the link on the description. Support. We will greatly appreciate it. So, Vayikra, Adonai called Moses, okay? And so we're going to read. This week's Torah portion starts in Leviticus chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 6, verse 7. The Haftarah portion is Isaiah chapter 43, verses 21 to chapter 44, verse 23. And the Haftarah portion is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1 through 18. So, the book of Leviticus starts the following. It says, Vayikra el Moshe wadaber Adonai Ela me'ohel moed lemor. And in English, it says the following. Then the Lord called Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, speak to the sons of Israel, and say to them, when any man of you brings an offering to the Lord, you shall bring your offering of animals from the herd of the flock. If this offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he shall offer it, a male without defect. He shall offer it at the doorway of the tent of meeting, that he may be accepted before the Lord. He shall lay his hands on the head of the burnt offering, that it may be accepted for him to make atonement on his behalf. He shall slay the young bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priest, shall offer the blood and sprinkle the blood around the altar that is at the doorway of the tent of meeting. He shall then skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron the priest shall put fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. Then Aaron's sons, the priest, shall arrange the pieces, the head, the suit, over the wood which is on the fire, that is on the altar, its entrails. However, its legs he shall wash it with water. The priest shall offer it and smoke all of it on the altar for burnt offering, an offering by fire of soothing aroma to the Lord. But if the offering is from the flock of the sheep or the goats for the burnt offering, he shall offer it a male with no defect, he shall slay on the side of the altar, northward before the Lord, and Aaron's sons the priest shall sprinkle his blood around the altar. He shall then cut it into pieces with his head and his suit, and the priest shall arrange them on the wood, which is on the fire, that is on the altar. The entrails, however, and the legs he shall wash with water, and the priest shall offer it all, and offer it up on smoke on the altar. It is a burnt offering, an offering by fire of soothing aroma to the Lord. But if his offering of the Lord is an offering of birds, then he shall bring it. And his offering of turtle doves and of young pigeons, the priest shall bring it to the altar and wring off its heads and offer it in smoke on the altar, and its blood is to be drained out on the side of the altar. He shall also take away its crop with its feathers and cast it beside the altar, eastward of the place of the ashes. Then he shall tear it by its wings, but shall not sever it. And the priest shall offer it up in smoke on the altar, on the wood which is on the fire. It is a burnt offering, an offering by fire of soothing aroma to the Lord. Here, we are introduced to the offerings, sacrifices. Now, the difference between the offering or a sacrifice is very distinct, right? Mainly, a sacrifice is a animal sacrifice that has to do, obviously, with blood that is given for a life, in exchange of a life, to an extent that is somewhat of the definition. But korban is more of something that is given to draw near, right? So, envision when you give a handshake to somebody, right? And usually we give a handshake, and either we give a hug in the process, all right? So that is draw near, right? So that handshake, the hands become, to an extent, what draws us near to each other for a hug, right? Now, the sacrifice or the offering is the intermediary. The offering is what draws you near to Adonai, and that is what he's seeking. Now, there's very interesting steps to this, right? So you are the offerer, you bring this offering, and it starts with the Olah offering, which is what we're going to talk about, the burnt offering, which is burnt completely on the altar. Now, this offering is telling Adonai, I'm giving this offering completely to you in thankfulness. And you will say, why will they bring these types of sacrifices, right? It gives you like at least 3 tiers, okay, of how you can do the burnt offering. And is giving space to those that can afford the most pricey one to the most affordable ones for those that can't or don't have cattle or don't have sheep. So they bring pigeon. But the reason why these things are brought to Adonai is because one, Adonai provides them, and two, it is a way that they can demonstrate their thankfulness by giving something from what they have earned. Okay, now, it's very interesting because the steps are, you prepare the offering, you bring it. Now, the ones that handle the blood of the offering is the priesthood. You cannot go into the tabernacle and officiate around the altar because that is designated for the Levitical priesthood and obviously Aaron and his sons. So we have no right to go in there. But what we do have right to is to bring our offering so that we can draw near Adonai. Remember, Adonai is seeking to draw you near to him. Okay, so something we're going to read. And we're going to read from 2 books. And all of this is informative because we have to understand that this sacrificial system that we're learning from Leviticus is tedious. Yes, blood and this, but understand that there's elements to this that visually are important, right? The bringing of the offering, the priesthood ministering between me and Adonai, and then the consuming of this offering, the smoke, that visualization of everything happening tells the offerer in their time, God is accepting my approach. And that smoke, that aroma that is lifted, that visualization lets the offerer know that it was accepted and that God is in a relationship, okay, and in a communication. Because remember, the only one that has communication with Adonai directly on the mountain with Moses, and now it would be Aaron ministering in the tabernacle with his sons and the Levitical priesthood. Okay, so let's get to reading. Leviticus starts off with obviously the Olah. We have the Shelamim, the Chata'at, and so there's a couple of offerings, but we're going to focus on the burnt offering, the Olah, which is a burnt offering. That is, Olah is like elevate, so it's an elevating offering. So you're elevating yourself to Adonai, or elevating your offering to a God. Okay. Now this is a diagram from Leviticus Commentary from Jacob Milgram. A very great resource. Very, very important. So as we can see, we have the altar, we have the laver, we have the courts, the outer court, the tabernacle itself with the holy and the holy of holies, the ark, the menorah, etc., etc. This chapter of Leviticus starts off with the burnt offering. Like I said before, the ritual procedure with the burnt offering can be reconstructed as follows. After the offerer has performed the hand landing rite and slaughtered his animals, the officiating priest dashes the animal's blood and collected it by his fellow priest upon all the sides of the altar, while the offerer skins and quarters the animal and washes its entrails and skin. Once the priest have stoked the altar fire, laid the wood upon it, and then laid the animal apart parts, the officiating priest supervises the incineration of the sacrifice. So obviously, steps to this is you prepare your animal, you bring it, and so you have to physically put your hand on your sacrifice or your offering. Now, just because you put your hand on the sacrifice doesn't mean that now this is you and you are exempted from anything. It's like it just took your, let's say, your sins or whatever the case may be. And no, right? To an extent, it is a representative of you, but we have to understand that morally and ethically, ritually, especially Israel, that could be ritually pure in their time, unlike us, we can't because there's no tabernacle, no temple. But morally, they had to be, and ritually, pure enough that when their sacrifice came and they brought it, they would put their hands, and it didn't replace them, it represented them. So once you put the hand landing right, that would say, this is my offering, and it represents me. But the only way that it can represent you, and it can be accepted, is if you represent that offering, which is a burnt offering. You're worthy of it. Okay? And this goes for the Shelamim, for the Chata'at, right? You have to morally be adequately eligible for you to have a valid offering. Okay? It's not just, I just bring an offering and I'm good. No. You have to be conscious enough that if it's a out of your heart burnt offering or well-being offering or meal offering, then you have to be honest. Or if it's a sin offering, you have to be completely repented, and that action has to be true. Okay? Now, once that is done, the priests are the ones that handle the blood. Now, the priests, is an interesting fact, they ministered in silence. And this is due to the fact that other nations, it is believed that when they did their rituals, they would do incantations and they would say phrases and things. And so to eliminate the shadow of a doubt that there was magic happening in the tabernacle, these priests will minister in silence. And everything they would do, it would be done in silence. Okay? Just a fun fact. Now, A.L. Openim, or I don't know how you say that, succinctly characterized the Mesopotamian religion as the care of feeding of the god. We owe Israel's priesthood for eviscerating every trace of this notion from the sacrificial system. Pagans regularly set food and drink on their god's table, but the priestly legist banned all food rites inside the shrine. All sacrifices were to be offered on the outer altar in the open courtyard, visible to all worshippers and removed from the tent, Yahweh's purported domicile. The text specifically prohibited the burnt offering flesh, the cereal offering bread, and all its libation drinks on the inner altar. Further, the frankincense and precious spices offered in the with the bread of the presence is not placed on the bread, as it is the case in other cereal offerings, but it is uniquely set apart from it, so that the bread can be eaten entirely by the priest, while the frankincense alone is burned on the altar. Thus, all of the gifts brought as a sacrifice are conspicuously removed from the tent, Yahweh's purported domicile, thereby erasing any suspicion that Israel's God consumed the sacrifices. Okay, so it's very interesting to understand these things because it brings a light to the contrast that Adonai is trying to bring to the people. Is a relationship, right? It is a me to you. You bring an offering. I give you a visual representation of the consumption of this offering. But in reality, all I'm saying is we have a relationship. The ones that consume the sacrifice will be with a meal offering, right? Or shalamim. Then it will be obviously Adonai and the priests and the people. And in a burnt offering, it is you bringing a complete offering to Adonai, and it burns, and you can see it, that it burnt, and that it's been accepted, and that Adonai did not eat it. Okay? And it is that technical, because remember, there is ideologies, there's religious practices and cults that had different entities, and Adonai is trying to build Israel so that they can have something that is honest, real, truth, and just. Okay? To represent him, and so that they can represent the nations as well. Okay, so now another interesting fact, and I'm gonna read this because the blood is something that is very hard for people to accept and understand when it comes to this step-by-step procedure when it comes to the sacrifices, right? The blood, and why so much blood, or it's so cruel. But understand that culturally, we still eat in restaurants, and we buy food in grocery stores. So these animals are still being killed and still being sacrificed so that we can consume them. Now, if you're a vegetarian, it's different, and okay. But for us that consume food, all around, we still go through these things. The only difference is that now we don't see it happening, but we don't know the suffering that animals can go through or do go through, and so the procedure that in that time they had was, okay, what we consume before they were consuming, they would bring to Adonai, they will offer it, and that would be a visual representation of how the slaughter would happen, and they can see it, and the animal wouldn't suffer, and they have steps to do, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so just bringing that to perspective, because many people will say, no, your God in the Old Testament, he is cruel and evil, but just understand culturally this is how they communicate, and this is how they physically, ritualistically would demonstrate their gratitude. And the first couple of offerings in the book of Leviticus are all positive, right? Later on is when it comes to when you sin and when you do this, but mainly were things that draw near to Adonai, to God. This is what we all are seeking. Okay? Interestingly, and I'm going to read it from this book. That's going to be a little uncomfortable, but hey, I got to read it. Good information. Okay, so Sunday Man, Illustrated Bible. Okay? Now, it talks about the blood because it is something that people might be against. But it says, the blood represented life, which is something that we have spoken, at least in the youth. In a ritual application of animal blood to the Israelite altar enacted ransom for a human life. And this is a very important element that it says here for atonement, which it is a covering, right? And in other sacrifices, it would atone for sin and for transgressions to Adonai's honor. Okay? Now, by contrast to Israel's ritual system, in which blood was intentionally and meaningfully applied in various ways to objects, areas, and persons, in Mesopotamia and Ugaritic cults lack such rituals used of blood. So Israel, in their sacrificial ways, would be placing the blood in specific places directly exactly how Adonai established it. Now, in some ancient cultures, in Hittites and the Greeks, blood could be used for alleviation to the underworld. Deities convey to them by means of ritual holes in the ground. So they would dig it all and pour the blood there. Just after such activity, slaughtering a sheep, a ritual involved in establishing a new Antolia temple for the goddess of the night, purifies the deity and the temple by bloodying the golden image, the wall, and all the implements of the deity. The Israelite sacrifice, by contrast, were offered to a celestial deity, Yahweh. So they would sacrifice, put the blood in the walls, put the blood in the image, and that's the way that they would purify and manage the blood themselves. In the Greek ritual, there will be of purification. The Greek ritual for purification from homicide could be for slaughtering a piglet over the head of a person, undergoing purification, and then rinsing of the blood. In other Greek purification rituals, officials carried a piglet around the city square in Athens, then slaughtered it and sprayed its blood over the seats and discarded the carcass. Okay, so these practices were ways that other nations and other cultures will use the blood of animals in animals. Now, again, Adonai is trying to bring order to what nations represent as chaos when it comes to how they purify and sanctify and approach their gods. Okay, so the burnt offering was meant to be burnt completely. Okay, and the intention of the burnt offering is to draw near, is a complete gratitude. The burnt offering says, I give you all that I have, and is completely to you and for you as an aroma. The idea of the book of Leviticus is God establishing the steps by steps to draw near him, to get closer to him, to find grace in his eyes. And this is what the people of Israel were called to do. And again, I want you to understand that Adonai is the one that calls Moses from the tent of meeting. God is the one speaking. These are in strict orders from Adonai that he never changed, that he never eliminated, that he never erased, because they were the blueprint from heaven. Remember, we are never, ever to misunderstand this point. We should always have it in our conscience. The only ones that can make God's presence to leave his tent and his sacred space is us. There's no demons. There's no evil. It is our constant desire to do our will over his will. And the book of Leviticus teaches us step by step how to draw near him. It's going to be tedious and it's going to be a little boring for some people, but it is important for us to learn this and try to read this. So, Alejandro, I promise you I'll put the video before or at the end of this video. So I'll put that up. But Alejandro, Matias, Caitlin, Victoria, all you guys, read the Torah portion. Elias, sit down with your parents. Leviticus is one of the books that nobody likes to read. Please read it. Please, please. Do your research and grow. We need to grow as a people. And the only way we're going to do that is getting to know Adonai's heart. So, I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys have a great Shabbat. A good weekend. A good week. Shavua Tov. Shabbat Shalom.